lap care using DIY detail products. Hi, I'm Ivan.
And I'm Nick, and I don't have a convertible top, but if you do, this is the man you want to listen to.
I've been driving convertibles for over 20 years, and this car, you'll notice it's wet. We've already washed it in this video here. But we saved the top for you. Now, this car, the top was very nasty. It was dirty. It had bird droppings, it had everything. We've washed it with soap, and normally I recommend using rinseless wash as your regular maintenance wash. But now we wanted a really deep clean. So we've used the garden hose. We did not use a pressure washer. Never use a pressure washer on your fabric top. Very dangerous. It actually causes marks that you'll never get out. But what we wanted to do was flood the top with water. And by flooding it with water, we're actually bringing that dirt a little bit to the surface and bringing it off. Now, we washed it with Incredible Suds. We flooded it, but there's still a bit of Incredible Suds residue in there.
So a real quick recap. We foamed Incredible Suds on.
Correct.
Which is a pressure washer and foam cannon, but it wasn't right up against it. It's a wide fan.
Yes. Gently.
Let it dwell.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And then you brushed it in.
Correct.
Can you show them the brush you used?
We use this brush, and this is the brush we'll use throughout the whole process other than applying the interior ceramic. Interior ceramic on a fabric top? Yes. It is a ceramic protection, normally reserved for interiors, but you normally don't have fabric on the outside of your car unless you have a convertible.
So that's gonna be the final step, super easy to use, but you're gonna walk us through exactly what we need to know about. We've washed it, it's wet. How do I prep it for that interior ceramic?
So the first thing we need to do to prep it is to make sure there's no suds left. And the easiest way to do that is with a brush. So what we're doing is we're brushing the top. And if we see sudsing, that means we still have a bit of soap. Since we still have a bit of soap, we're gonna brush the whole top, rinse it off gently with the garden hose, and then check it again. And you may need to repeat this process 2 or 3 times. But the more you prep the surface, in other words, the more suds you get out of the surface, the better it will be.
Why is it so important to get all this soap out of the fabric top?
Well, actually, you're the better person to answer that, Nick.
I always tell people with carpet cleaning, you definitely want to rapid dry whatever it is that you're cleaning. You want to extract as much of the gunk and the soap as you can. Ideally, you have 0 residue when you extract carpets, but the reality is you're going to leave something behind. You don't want it to be high pH, and quite frankly, the less you leave behind, the better. So if you're trying to tell me to explain this, all I know is I want the least amount of residue possible. I want to rapid dry my carpets, because if I leave them with a high pH product embedded in there, it's going to be sticky, so it's going to attract soil, it's going to wick back when I'm done, and it's also going to have kind of just a dull or gray appearance if it's black. How'd I do, Ivan?
Excellent. So now that we've worked the suds up again, time to rinse it off. And I'm using a very gentle spray with a high volume of water to rinse away the remaining suds. And we are using deionized water. We're not doing this in direct sunlight, so I'm not worried about water spots.
What happens if you're in direct sunlight with this?
You need to dry the car every time you do this. So there'll be a few layers of ceramic gloss on here by the time you're done.
In my head, I feel like this is doing something.
It actually is. So Nick is doing a great job of rinsing off the soap residue from the roof. And he started in the middle, he's working his way back, he's gonna go to the other side, do the same thing there. And let me take a brush one more time. Now we have no suds whatsoever. So we know we're good to go. So you'll notice Nick's technique is excellent. He is rinsing from the center out, making sure that all the suds are going down the side of the car. Next step, we need to dry the top. And that's where the drying blanket comes in. Drying blanket does an amazing job at this, but we want to make sure that it's completely dry. if you're at home, this is the time where you actually put it in direct sunlight. So put it outside in direct sunlight. If you can leave it overnight, even better. We have these incredibly powerful tube heaters up here, and once we light them up, we never have them running when we're on camera because you couldn't hear us. It's a little loud. That being said, it will help in drying this, but this does a great job in drying. So we put our drying blanket on, we pat it down just a little bit, and watch how much water it's actually taking off this roof. That's almost dry.
Ivan, we just spent, I don't know, 20 minutes drying this convertible top?
Maybe a little more, yeah.
Yeah, that was a long time. And so it feels dry to me, but you got another trick up your sleeve. What is it?
It's a plastic bag. This is actually used in the concrete industry, but does the same thing. Put the plastic bag on, and we let it sit there for a few minutes. And we've already done the test, so we know the results. But it will capture any humidity that's in the top, and it will form condensation on the bag.
Just on the plastic?
On the plastic. So we know that if the plastic gets wet, we still have moisture in our top.
Do you press it down kind of hard before you leave it, or do you just say it? So you
leave it there and see what it does. And if it, you want to make sure it doesn't blow away. But once you've done that, it takes about 15 minutes. And if you have no moisture on the bag, you know your top is dry. Perfectly bone dry. We're ready to apply the interior ceramic. Let's get our tools.
Okay.
Next, the application of the ceramic coating. Now, you notice Nick has a microfiber towel in his hand. If you do this as a team of two, even better. If you're doing it yourself, do it in small sections. And then any overspray, you want to wipe it off the paint or the windows. You're not in a rush to wipe it off immediately, but just before it dries. Very simple. We're going to be applying the interior ceramic liberally. We're basically wanting to get the top almost wet again. And then once I've applied it to a section that's comfortable in reach for me, I'll take a brush. I'm going to be brushing it in two different directions. That way I'm completely coating the fibers. And this is a brand new brush, so you'll notice it's leaving the odd little blue fiber here and there. I'm not worried about that. They'll come off quite easily. And then any overspray that we got on the window here, we just wipe that off on the windshield trim. And we move on to the next section.
So I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
You're gonna wanna let this dry.
Right.
Do I double layer this bad boy or what?
Definitely. We want to let it dry for roughly an hour. And once it's dried for an hour, we go back over it again, same system. And then ideally, if you can, leave it sit overnight after that.
So 2 layers?
2 layers, ideal, good protection. And also on the seams, we want to double up. Before doing the second coat, while it's drying, take your interior ceramic and help the hardest working part of your roof. And that is the seams. So just spray some onto the seam, nice and thick, get it in there. And then work it in with the brush. That's going to protect the seam even better. We're done. We have 2 coats on. We've extra protected the seams. This car is ready to go back to the customer.
I mean, ideally, you're going to protect every surface, but what can you expect to happen now that you have interior ceramic on your convertible soft top?
You're going to get some beading, but you're also going to get sheeting. It's a really interesting concept. The way this works, if you have just a little bit of water on the surface, it's going to bead up. If you have a flood, it's raining hard, it is going to completely get wet. And the reason it does that, twofold. When you have just a little bit of moisture and you have dust in there, you don't want it getting wet. Because if it gets wet, that's going to create mud that is going to abrade and break those fibers apart. But if you have enough water that's going to flush that dirt out of there, then you want it to absorb that water and allow it to flush. And that's exactly what interior ceramic will do.
Speaking of interior ceramic, right here is a playlist about this wonderful product. Go check that out, and we will see you there.